Welcome, everyone. So happy to see you here in this series for Women's in AI Week. My name is Seinabu. I'm the city lead for Montreal for Women in AI, and I'm here with Prachi, who's going to be moderating this panel. Really happy to have you all there. Before we start with the panel discussion, I just wanted to give a few words about Women in AI and our mission. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, maybe not the right screen. Let me just try again. All right, yeah. I tried to specifically target that one slide, but just let me try again. But yeah, so the theme of this panel is bridging the gender gap in AI. And if I don't have more technical difficulties, I'll just show you the slides too. All right, yeah. Yeah, so Women in AI is essentially a community of women working in different fields in AI. And our goal is basically to, oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, yeah, just give me one moment. Sorry about that. I was doing my test just now and it doesn't seem to show anymore. Yeah, all right, that should go. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so here's the presentation and start the slideshow. So bridging the gender gap in AI. So Women in AI is a nonprofit do tank and a community-driven initiative. We have members all around the globe, and our mission is to increase female representation and participation in AI. So what we do essentially is just educate the next generation of female leaders and AI through different types of activity. These are some of our numbers. We have more than 8,000 members. We've organized more than 300 events and are scattered around more than 130 different countries. Our core values are diversity, responsible AI, care and compassion, empowerment and support, as well as equality. And some of the activities we have are the Way Time, the Way Talk, like the one we're having today, Way Accelerate, Way Awards, our Way Summits that are more general year-long activities. We also have our education aspect with the Way to Go and the Way camps. We also try to publish scientific papers and also communicate a lot in social media, newspapers, and mediums, and connect with partners around the world that are like-minded and share same mission and values. So we're organizing a Way Awards event, and it's going to be just next month. And we have applications for different kinds of awards for women leaders in AI. And the application has been extended up until the April 1st. So I believe that's in 2 weeks. And yeah, don't hesitate to nominate yourself for some of these awards. It includes things like leaders in sustainability, ESG, entrepreneurs, people in education, as well as youth leaders. So check it out and nominate people you know about, and if it's yourself, go for it. All right, I'll put the link for that in the chat. And if ever you want to join us and be involved more with Way, you can try to become a Way member, try to sponsor Way as or partner up with Way. With for other nonprofits, choose to be mutually beneficial partnerships, and sponsors, usually like companies who want to basically bridge the gender gap, are supporting us. Some examples are York University, the Next AI Accelerator, Microsoft, etc. But yeah, I'm gonna move it to the team, which I'm a part of along with Prachi. The ambassador is Francie Clément, and we have members in Toronto, Ottawa, Calgary, and Vancouver, as well as Edmonton, and other members who are basically leads for different topics. But yeah, I won't take any more of your time, and I'm gonna let you all go with the panel. And thank you so much for being here. Prachi, go ahead.
Thank you, Seinabu. Thanks for the amazing introduction. I once again welcome all the amazing panelists who are here today, who've taken time out on a busy Friday morning, afternoon, from all across different time zones to be here. and all the people who are joining us in different rooms here. So, sorry, who are joining us to listen in. It's great to have you here. We're very grateful. We have an amazing panel today to talk about a great topic, breaking the bias, or break the bias, which is the theme of, Women's Day this year. A very interesting topic, and as women in AI, we wanted to understand how are we breaking the bias in our own space of work and personal life. So, presenting to you the amazing speakers that we have today. Joining us is Dawn Edmonds, Senior Manager, Digital First Policy, Ontario Digital Services. Welcome, Dawn. It's great to have you here. Great. Yeah, just the way we helps people understand who's who. And then we have Stephanie, the one with the beautiful smile there. That's Stephanie, the co-founder and executive director of Technovation Montreal. Hi, Stephanie. Great to have you on the panel today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's amazing to have such powerful, strong women speakers today. I would love to welcome Wendy Gonzalez, CEO at Sama, joining us from the other side of Canada's border, USA, San Francisco. Great to have you here, Wendy.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's begin with learning about your stories. I think all of us have a professional and a personal story of the journey we've had. I would love to call upon all three of you, one after the other, to know about essentially the company that you work for, what's the work that you're doing, your role as the contributor, and what does break the bias mean to you, and how have you experienced breaking the bias in your own professional journey? I would love to welcome Wendy to begin the conversation. Wendy.
Thank you. Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Prachi, and thank you, Sanabu, for inviting me to come and speak. Just a little bit about Sama and what we do. So our objective is really to accelerate and advance computer vision AI development by providing the most accurate, scalable, and ethical data pipeline. So we provide the pipeline that feeds, deep learning and supervised learning applications, both data annotation, data curation, filtering, transformation, as well as things like, model optimization, where we're helping track and ensure that the AI models are accurate. So our focus is really around providing, accurate and representative data.
Thanks for
So that's a little bit about what we do. A little bit about me. So a couple of things. One is I think there were some questions specifically around what breaking the bias may mean to me, and sort of have I experienced bias in my own professional career. So along those lines, really from my standpoint, I think that what really we're doing here at Sama is we are trying to provide accurate and effective and ethical AI. So that's one thing that's really key. And one of the things that's kind of interesting about that is that when you're thinking about artificial intelligence in particular, supervised learning, it matters what data is in your system, right? You've heard the saying garbage in, garbage out. Well, beyond that, it matters who is building those systems, right? And do you have diversity and inclusion in who's building those systems? And do you have diversity and inclusion in the data, and even the people who are labeling your data? So I'll tell a little bit more about Sama and kind of our origins. But we do have a hiring model where we hire at least 50% women. And that goes from our labeling workforce all the way up to the top of the organization. So I'm proud to say we're about 51%, 49% right now. And that's kind of core to what we do. But a bit more in terms of what does breaking the bias mean to me? It really means about opening opportunities for everyone. I have a fundamental belief that inclusive business and social business is better business. And so I feel like our jobs, and part of my job, is to really create a flywheel for diversity and inclusion. And it means fighting prejudice as well. In terms of have I experienced that in my own professional career, I'm sure like many of you here on the phone. Of course, I'm older, so I'll just say that I've been around for a little while, so I've seen more than a couple of decades of this. But for the majority of my professional career, I've been one of very few women in the room. And I'll just make one note. Probably the most notable was when we were doing our Series A raise, and it was my founder and I, so two women of color doing the fundraise, and there, quite frankly, were more than a few occasions where we were asked, who else is showing up? And that was not an uncommon thing. I think things are getting better. I think that's part of our objective, is to create diversity. But that's just a little bit about me and our company.
Thank you, Wendy. That was really, really powerful, and it's great to know about your journey. And the Series A funding example you shared was very, very motivational. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Stephanie, we would love to hear from you, your story, your journey, and what does Break the Bias mean to you? And we would love to know a lot more about your professional workspace and how do you contribute to the larger society. Welcome.
Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very glad to be with you today, and especially that I'm collaborating already with some of you in some of our activities. So it's great to be able to meet and speak to you. So I am the co-founder and the executive director of Technovation Montreal. It is a nonprofit organization. Technovation was initially launched in the US, in the Silicon Valley. So it is an educational program in technology and entrepreneurship for girls. So our mission is really to empower, to train and equip and provide the tools to the next generation of female leaders in tech and entrepreneurship. And we want to give them a real opportunity to put their skills into action. And so what we do is we teach them how to solve a problem in their community by using technology. And so basically what they do throughout our program, they learn how to create a mobile app that will solve a problem in their community. And so we provide them workshops, and they also have mentorships. So they work in teams. So the girls aged from 8 to 18 years old are working with mostly majority of women professionals who are either have an IT background or a business development background or product development, and then we'll help them and support them throughout the project, the development of the project. So we provide coding classes, entrepreneurship training as well, and it's also a lot of also leadership skills that they're building along the way. So it's really to inspire the next generation of those tech female entrepreneurs and tell them that they have their place in this industry. So it's really to empower them and to see that yes, they can create and not just be consumers of technology, but they also can create something that brings a positive impact in their community. And so in terms of what it means for me to breaking the bias, I think that it's to provide equal opportunities. And so for us, the fact that we are teaching young girls, those concepts, and that there's no barriers in having access to our program, is that they all have a chance to learn and experiment and to try something. And I think that's very important. Specifically, I think that we've probably all been through this as a girl, as a woman, and especially as a woman of color. You always feel the pressure, to perform, to be better than the others, and then so there's always come those extra pressure that comes with it. And just to provide a space where you can try and you can experiment and be yourself, I think is very important. And so that you can enter a space and you feel that you bring something to the table, and also giving them a voice and giving them access to just not we say we want to have the younger generation with us, but I think that providing them opportunities to speak out, to be able with us in the room as well, I think it's very important. And I think that's the way also that they feel more confident. I think that when you feel that you have power, and that whatever you say is people will listen to what you have to say, and you bring value, I think it's very empowering. So that's what we try to do. And for me to be surrounded by women that comes from different backgrounds, from different experience, is also something that's very inspiring. And I think that's something also that we try to showcase to all our participants, is that you have women coming from different backgrounds, coming from different experience. And sometimes, when you enter the tech field, it's not like a linear, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but it's not a linear journey. So so you can come, from a different studies, and then you decide to come to technology. I think that especially that was the case maybe a decade ago, maybe 20 years back. But now that, there's so many programs and opportunities for girls. So sometimes, to create your own path and to feel that, you don't need to have the specific set of, studies, but then your experience also matters and counts. So that's what we're trying to bring together.
I'm amazed to be, it's an opportunity for me to be speaking with all you wonderful ladies today, because when you talk about impacting the future generations and, helping them understand about bias, how to break the bias, I think one important aspect of that is the unconscious bias, which a lot of us grow up thinking it's normal. And you're breaking the convention there, you're breaking the glass ceiling. So congratulations on the amazing work you're doing there. Very, very proud to have you on the panel today, Stephanie. At that point, I do want to bring in that when we talk about bringing in these changes, it is also very important to have policies which will bring this change about. And on that note, I would like to bring in Dawn and ask you the same question. Dawn, what's your story? Tell us about your company and what does Break the Bias mean to you?
So thank you for that intro, Prachi. I was going to start introducing myself by saying I am completely different than everyone else on the line because my interest in AI is on the policy side. So as mentioned in my introduction, my title is Senior Manager of Digital First Policy. I work at the Ontario Digital Service, which is a part of the Ontario government. But I am a policy professional first. So my team is working on building out and developing the trustworthy artificial intelligence framework for the use of artificial intelligence by and within the government of Ontario. So as a provincial government, we have a responsibility to serve all of the people who live where we live. We recognize that artificial intelligence is in the news a lot. People don't know what it means. Some people are scared by what they hear. Some people are just curious, they don't understand. We are trying to build a policy framework so that our ministries, when they use artificial intelligence, do it in a trustworthy and safe way, and that the individuals in Ontario can feel confident that the government is using this technology in a way that makes sense and is protecting their privacy and their security concerns. So I do feel like a little bit of a fish out of water on this panel in that my experience has been different, and we speak about sort of breaking the bias. So I will confess that actually policy as a profession is predominantly female, particularly in the lower levels. As you move up the sort of executive rankings, the proportion of women goes down, which I think is not unusual in every discipline. Where we do run into problem is that so I work primarily on digital and data policy, AI being the largest file that I have. And where we can run into difficulty is that we will meet with our technical stakeholders within government, and it will be myself and a room full of men who have been doing government IT for sometimes decades. And it's trying to establish my credentials with them. They're already skeptical because I'm policy. So I'm only policy, I can't know anything. And then I think the fact that I'm a woman, and although I'm not young, I'm often younger than all of them, it takes me that time to establish the credibility and to build those relationships. And I sometimes feel like I wish that the default could be that my expertise and opinions are valued at the same level that theirs are. I sort of went off topic or on a tangent there. I'm not going to apologize in advance, but I will acknowledge in advance that it's spring break here in Ontario, so my kids are home today. So just acknowledging that there might be an interruption, but I'm not going to apologize for that because I think we do that too much as women.
You don't have to, Dawn. It's work from home. Home, you will experience home when you're working. It's okay. Dog barks, kids screaming, it's okay. No worries. You can even bring your kids, on screen. That's all right. We as women in AI understand that and appreciate, you taking the time out to go ahead and pursue your profession along with everything that we do at home. So that's really good. I am so happy today because all of you are actually working in different domains and have very different roles, but you all manage to empower women and bridge the gender gap in AI in your own ways. So I'm just going to open up with a few questions. Feel free, any one of you who would like to answer them, go for it. I think the first one is really about what is the importance of DEI in your company and how are you helping bridge the gender gap in AI? Stephanie, Wendy, Dawn, please welcome and answer that. Yeah. Any one of you can just unmute and go ahead. That's all right.
I guess I'll jump in. I was waiting, giving a bit of a pause, but I'll be happy to jump in. So I'll kind of pick up where I last left off. I deeply believe that diverse and inclusive businesses are better businesses. What I mean by that, I just don't mean better in terms of diversity. I mean like actually better performing businesses. That is my strong thesis. Our business was founded on employing as I mentioned before, at least 50% women and 50% men, and basically focusing on really diverse and representative teams to build better, more effective, and representative AI. As I mentioned before, it's really all about the data, and the more diverse teams, basically the more representative and effective you can make your AI applications. Our approach is really around striving to help companies build game-changing technology while really impacting lives and creating a diverse workforce. So we have the 50-50 hiring is a mandate. So we actually monitor this. So all of our workforce that we hire, we have a large workforce in East Africa. We hire at least 50% women. It's all equal pay. So, there's no, pay equity gap because everybody starts at the same pay, regardless. And what we really focus on, I'm a big believer in measuring. If you actually establish so having aspirations is certainly wonderful. But at the end of the day, you need to set targets and you actually need to measure that and understand where you're doing, and if you're doing well or not well. So one of the things we do when we take a look at it is we take a look at not just the hiring rates, but the retention rates, the promotion rates, the compensation rates for women in underrepresented communities at every level in the organization. And while we know that there's still absolutely room to grow, we're trying to take that level of measurement and take it to things like employee engagement. So we recently implemented a new pretty comprehensive employee engagement software called Culture Amp, and we are taking a look at that, not just in terms of are we promoting and paying and seeing that diversity at every level of the organization, all the way up through the board. Sorry, I didn't explain my role. I'm the CEO, so I have some visibility to that, but also creating visibility into our board as well. So that is sort of how we manage it. And employee engagement and the levels of engagement across populations is our next objective. The other thing too is that, again, measuring is really critical. One of the things that we've focused on is in 2021, we've actually done this a few times in our history of our company, but we actually brought in independent organizations to help us audit and understand both our impact as well as the impact on on women. So we have a specific impact hiring model where we hire in underserved communities and we pay living wages and full-time employment as opposed to crowd or contract work. And we engaged actually with MIT and Poverty Action Labs to conduct an over 3-year study to understand, does this sort of idea of hiring women and youth in underserved communities, does it make the difference we think it's going to make, which is that by providing digital skills training and actual employment and benefits, does it actually increase people's wages, and does it improve their ability to be employed? So this is an over 3-year study where basically, if you're familiar, maybe I'm not sure, Dawn, if this is something familiar with you as well, but it's a randomized control trial. And that's basically where you have control groups where you say, hey, here's the demographic. What would happen with these women and youth in underserved communities if they didn't get the training and hiring of SAMA? What would happen if they received the training but not the hiring? What would happen if they received the training and the hiring? And what we found over this 3-year study is that in particular for women, so this is over 1,000 people, and it was over a 3-year period, that interestingly enough, women, by the end of the study, which wrapped up in 2021, women were 3 times more likely to be employed and 3 times more likely, 3 times higher income through the course of this intervention. So I think the reason I bring all this detail up is that when it comes to affecting change, we have to make purposeful decisions and actions, which means if we set a target and we're setting a target of hiring a certain number of women or a certain percentage, we do that, it can have absolutely incredible impacts, and we need to measure those results and listen and learn from them. So our focus is to continually measure, and at the end of the day, what we find is that there's still, quite frankly, a lot of barriers to employment. So as an example, we measure what income is like before our workforce joins SAMA, and women are making 70 cents for every dollar for men. So we have to affect that change through equal pay. We have to affect that change through making sure that promotion rates, compensation rates stay equal. And that we really, without sort of taking that purposeful action and really monitoring the data, it's really difficult to know if you're heading in the right direction. So my message on diversity and inclusion is that it's critical. I believe it's core to making better businesses and better products. But beyond that, you have to measure it. And if you don't measure it and hold yourself accountable, it's really difficult to make progress. Sorry, that probably sounded like a little bit of a soapbox.
I'm sure all the audience are listening in, and they have questions. There's so much more, because I think what a lot of times we miss out on is measuring the impact. You're doing that, and 3 times the salaries, 3 times the retention. These are very strong numbers. So thank you so much for sharing this information with us. That actually brings me to my second question, because this sounded like your war against diversity, discrepancy. So thank you so much. And that my second question really is, again, open to all 3 panelists here. How hard have some of you had to fight for diversity? And can you share a story, of your biggest DEI win? That will really inspire us today. Welcome, again, all 3 panelists. Anyone who would like to take this can go ahead, please.
I'd be happy to take this one. I do think working for government, my experience is a little bit different. So sort of primary focus for the public service is that the demographics of our public service reflect the demographics of our province. And so I can't speak specifically to AI because we have 60,000 employees. My AI team is 8 people. But just in general, our public service, you talk about sort of better company. We believe that bringing a diversity of voices and experiences into the public service helps us better serve all of the people of the province. And we have targeted strategies in place to, in particular, ensure that at the leadership level, we're reflecting the demographics of the province and how we work together. Specifically on AI, and I alluded to it a little bit in my introduction, although we are a unionized environment, and so there's equity of pay between positions, we still do find that if you look at the pay distribution between men and women, there is a discrepancy. I can't remember the exact discrepancy, but there is a discrepancy. And it's not because men and women doing the same job are getting paid differently, but it's that men are being promoted more preferentially. Men are in the tech field, which have higher salaries generally. There tend to be a lot more women in administrative and lower wage positions. So although sort of position to position, there's pay equity, I think it's, for me and within the public service, it's about encouraging women to enter those fields and making them feel supported in those fields. I spoke a little bit about how it can be intimidating sometimes being the only woman in the room with a bunch of technical male people. And so that's a real issue for us, is how do we make sure that sort of women's voices are brought to the table and also respected at the table. And that's sort of about the culture change and how we can achieve that culture change, which, we have 60,000 employees approximately. So it's not I often use the metaphor of affecting change in government is like trying to steer a cruise ship with a paddle. Right. So you're not in your kayak and you can't be all nimble because you're having to change the opinions and the perspectives of 60,000 people who are trying to reflect sort of services to 16 million. So that's sort of, I think, my biggest challenge. And I sometimes have to remind myself, what is my sphere of influence? So what change can I actually affect on the micro level, and hope that then I can, by sort of breeding the next generation and encouraging that sort of, I don't know what the right word is, confidence in my team of women, largely women, that then they will sort of project that out to the next level. And I will say that I have had the great good fortune in my policy career of working with and reporting to some incredibly competent, capable, inspiring women. And my ultimate boss, my 2 ultimate bosses, the first is the Secretary of the Cabinet, who's like in charge of the whole public service, is a woman, as well as the Deputy Minister that I report to is a woman. She's their Chief Digital and Data Officer, highly technical field. She's a technical background. And so that is certainly inspiring and supportive of sort of how do we move forward as women in government in sort of non-traditional roles.
Okay, that is very insightful. Thank you. I once again would just want to call out that if the audience, you have any questions for our amazing panel members, make sure you put them down here so that we can get your questions addressed in the Q&A section as we approach that. Thank you so much for all the insights and all the information today. Stephanie, I have a question for you. There's a program that Technovation runs. It's an initiative called Code With Me. And the sessions are for young women who don't necessarily have coding experience, any coding experience at all. We would love to know more about this program and about the audience that you reach out to, and tell us a little more about how is this different? How are you promoting diversity and inclusion with this initiative?
Yes, Code With Me AI is a very interesting initiative because it actually came from our alumni and student ambassador. So we have students who go through the program. They can be either in primary school, in college, or in secondary school. And so two of our past participant alumni came to us and said, well, we like to continue our education and learn more about technology, and we would like to hear more about women who are in this career. And so they came up with this idea of putting together this program, this initiative called Code With Me AI, which is a series of monthly webinar where you have industry professionals who come and talk about their journey, but also so it's a discussion, but then it's also coding activities. So give an opportunity for girls to have maybe just an insight on what it is to have applied AI in the everyday work. So whether you talk about AI in agriculture, AI with medicine, AI with in transportation, so mobility. So it's really, so they actually are the one who are running the program. So it's two of our student ambassadors who put together the program initiative. They go and search for the industry professionals and that want to give a lecture, and also put together the activities and the coding aspect. And what's interesting is that I strongly believe, sometimes people would say, well, we don't see that many girls in technology in this field, maybe because they're not interested. It's not, for me, I do believe it's not because they're not interested, it's because they're not exposed enough. And that's why we want to focus on this young generation, because the younger we start and give them opportunities to learn and to discover what AI, what it is, and how it can apply in their everyday life, I think that the more interest they gain, and they want to be involved in this. So it's interesting that it's those young women who are talking to those young girls, and I think that's also interesting because I believe that to bring this younger generation at the table and give them opportunities to learn, and also to build something that's interest them. And so every month, so we have those women professionals that come and talk about their journey, and they talk about what it takes to be in this industry, but also it gives them also a perspective of different kind of role models. And I was mentioning earlier, so it's not like everybody has the same profile, everybody has the same journey. So it's interesting for them to learn more about women coming from different backgrounds, coming from different experience as well. So it was interesting because we had a woman, I think, who was a mentor. She came from the artistic field, and then she decided to switch and to be in technology. So usually we'll maybe see, something different. It's the reverse, but I think that knowing that, there's so many ways that you can, be involved, and also showing the creative process and creative aspect, because sometimes, people tend to say, well, where can I bring my creativity? We have a lot of girls who are illustrators, who would like to, are interested in video, are interested in our creative aspects, and to see that you can bring that also in the AI and tech field is something that did discover and say, oh, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that this was possible. I think that's really the usual comments that come more and more. And for me, diversity, it's something that we express in our team. So the majority of our team are women, but we have we have women who are also coming from cultural diversity. And I think it's also very important. Being a woman of color myself, I see, that there's not that many women that we see out there, and there are many women actually. But when you look at the media, you look at on the web also, we want to project and inspire other women to see, it is possible, and that you have a space and you have your place there. So it's bringing a seat at the table as well. So it's something that we're really conscious about, and that we want to make sure that there's a very fair representativity in terms of the people that we're working with. So that's, for us, it's something that's very important.
I have some amazing takeaways I'm going to take from this session, things that will stay close to my heart. Thank you, Stephanie. Things you told me about you, Wendy, and Dawn. I think there are some very inspiring messages, and I would love for our audience to, type down anything that's going to be the one thing that you're going to remember. If you forget everything from the session, the one thing which will stay with you, maybe put that in chat here. Leave some inspirational quotes here. That would be amazing. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing, the ideas about Code with Me. It's an amazing program, and if any of you would like to know more about it, go ahead, check out their Facebook page, their site, and make sure you join and get more girls introduced to this.
Yeah, and we actually have an activity coming up on March 29, and I'm very happy to see Wendy here, because it's a collaboration with and also with you, with Women in AI, with Sama, and also with Kids Code Jeunesse. So it's going to be on AI and social goods. So it's open to everyone. It's going to be on March 29 at 6:30. So it's a free event. So I'm very happy about this collaboration, and it's nice to work together with other organizations who are supporting women and promoting women in AI. So we're very excited about that. And I just wanted maybe to circle back to what Wendy said earlier when she talked about impact and measurement, and I think it's so important. We're actually doing we're working with an organization, the McConnell Foundation, to review the impact that we have with our program, because as you say, we're running many different initiatives, but we want to see, when the skills that we're teaching to the young girls, what will be the impact of those skills, and how will it help them prepare for the workforce, or even to launch their own entrepreneurship endeavor. So I think that's one thing that you mentioned, and I totally agree with you, Wendy, that it's important to measure our impact, because sometimes we can do activities and we can do things, but is it making us grow? And you're talking about the numbers of how many girls or women who are in the field, and we know that there's only 20% women who are in the path of the STEM industry and career. So there's still a lot of work to do, and there's still a long way to go. So I think that measuring the impact is a good way to track our progress, and to see, are we doing the right things, and if not, how can we review the courses of our actions, and make sure that we do see a progress in that sense.
That's a great thought. And on that note, I will go ahead and call Wendy next, because we spoke about numbers, we spoke about values. So I know that diversity is a core value at Sama. We would love to know how that translates into examples of work or efforts that you see being put in at Sama. And if you could tell us a little more about these examples, which help you reach your diversity and inclusion goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Stephanie. We're really looking forward to the collaboration. So that is going to be a very fun event. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll kind of further sort of build upon the sort of the measurements and the targets. So what we do is we actually track and measure, very similar to the way we measure our financials. We track our diversity targets and report them to our board on a quarterly basis. So you have to hold yourselves accountable. And, you need to enable, the right kind of relationships and processes. So, for example, like the event that's going to happen at the end of the month, you need to build your networks to ensure that you can bring in the most diverse sort of funnel of candidates into the process. And so it's everything from sort of talent acquisition, if you will, hiring and hiring being very conscious of the interview practices, including, reducing bias during the interview, unconscious bias during the interview process, all the way to how do you treat your employees, right? Which is, are you, what is the employee engagement? Is it different between women or, people of color, or female, women who are people of color? Is it different at every level? Right. And so all of that measurement is really, I think, critical. And so we look at that on a quarterly basis and do things like take poll surveys. The other thing I'll mention is that it's not just about diversity in general, it's about diversity at different levels of leadership. So I wanted to highlight that for a little bit, because the way that I sort of look at this is that to really kind of create that flywheel of diversity, you have to, it has to be at all levels. It can't just be at the entry levels. And I saw there was a chat around like what happens, with women later in their career while they drop out of IT. And I think part of the challenge is that they don't necessarily have leaders to look up to, or who believe that, diversity is something that's really important. So I've been very vocal about it, and I have I think you have to model your values. So you had a question earlier about like, what is my biggest DEI win? So aside from, measurement and achieving greater than 50%, female workforce and to do it each level, was to do it at the top. So I'm super proud of the fact that our board is 80% BIPOC and 40% women. I'd love for it to be 60%. I'm working on it as the board expands. But when you can kind of set those examples out there, I think that it is not only important because at each level, there's a lot of influence that happens. And so if you've got people in leadership positions who believe the diversity is really critical, you'll start to see that change. And there's a natural focus, but, we're certainly, we're not perfect. I mean, a great example is a big focus for us this year is going to be around engineering. So how do we do more to bring more, data scientists, PhDs, software engineers, and create greater diversity there. So we're taking that measurement really helps us take a very hard look and say, all right, we're doing really great in these areas. What do we need to do? And how do we start to build relationships, whether it's, earlier on in sort of STEM and development programs, all the way to, working with, affinity groups to, try to diversify the funnel of candidates. So if I'm going to do my plug, we're hiring. Anyway, we love to have diverse candidates and women in the organization. So that would be probably my plug, is to say, we're hiring, and I'd love to hear also maybe there are chats from our panelists or from members of the audience to know what can we do a better job of reaching out to get in touch with women, because I'll make one last point. Oftentimes it's not always evident, because if you only let me put it this way. I was looking to hire a female board chair. It was important to me, and I wanted to ideally have a female from an underrepresented demographic. If I was only looking for, a BIPOC board chair, and my candidate list, who's been a board chair before, I should say, might be fairly small, right? And so the objective was, how do you measure on, how do you assess potential? How do you kind of cast the net wider? Because where would we be? We wouldn't have a movement forward if we didn't sort of open our eyes to a broader set of kind of candidates and a broader set of skills. So to some of the, I think, questions in here, like I think more and more employers are becoming much more intelligent about hiring on potential. And I think that's why bringing in leaders and continue to promote women and diverse people into leadership roles is that I think there's a much greater likelihood to say, hey, we don't have to, then they're done that, only graduated from, these universities or only with this experience, but really to kind of open that lens. Thank you.
Some great points in there, Wendy. Super excited to, talk to you more about this. We would love to have all of you, all the panelists, back in WAI sessions for longer discussions. At this point, I'm going to head back to Dawn. And Dawn, we would love to know about the work you're doing at Ontario Digital Services. You're working with the government. And in what ways do you think the government can support these efforts better? What are the ideas that you have, that we can work with to make future better?
Thank you so much. So the Ontario Digital Service is actually part of government. So we are embedded within the Ministry of Finance here in Ontario. But as I mentioned earlier, we have a dedicated deputy minister who is our chief digital and data officer. So at the Ontario Digital Service, our mandate is to transform the Ontario government into a digital government. So we sort of, how do we, it seems so cliche, and I know that everyone else on the line is very technical, but it's really like, how do we take that cruise ship and turn it into a nimble and agile, responsive government that serves all of the people? And I think with respect to hiring, one of the challenges that I face, so we are in a unionized environment, which I think is very important and sort of speaks to some of the pay equity. But part of the problem is that is not a nimble hiring environment. There's sort of very strict sort of ways that you can interview, and everything has to be documented a specific way. So one of the things that I have actually tried to leverage as much as possible is that we do bring in cooperative education students who are sort of partway through their college or university career or their education, and those positions are much less tightly regulated. So it's and are often sort of a gateway to a sort of longer term government job. So I have really made it my personal mission as much as possible to increase diversity where I can in my hiring. So if I'm hiring for someone senior, I have to hire from the pool of candidates that already work within the government and are in the union. But when you're sort of hiring those people that are fresh out of school or still in school, how do you focus on bringing the diversity in at that stage so that, in 5 or 6 years, when you're looking to hire someone senior, those people are in the pool? So again, I think I mentioned it earlier, but for me, it's about understanding my own sphere of influence and how I can affect change at what levels that I can, understanding that the system that I work within is fairly rigid. I think that's sort of the key for me, is that sort of bringing on that talent at the beginning to set yourself up for sort of future promotion. You can't go in the union from a level 1 to a level 7 without you can't go straight to a level 7. You sort of have to work through the ranks. So how do we bring the people in at the beginning? And we might not see that change right away, but it's about laying the groundwork for sort of future diversity and success.
It's amazing because you talk about future diversity, and Stephanie spoke about, Code With Me, when he's talking about all the amazing programs you're doing with kids and youth. So I think it's very important because as a generation, being a woman of color myself, I think we have faced conscious and unconscious bias. Some of it, we don't even know it's bias till we grown up and we're told, oh, this was bias, by the way. So it's so important, and especially with AI, the technology that we have at hand, there's so much more we can do. So it's great to hear all these things. At this point, I will bring in some of the audience questions for you, because we're getting some really strong questions out here. The first one is from Cora, and she says, your experiences and accomplishments are inspiring. A recent study by Accenture showed that 50% of women leave tech roles by the age of 35. Are there things that have helped you stay in the course of your career? We are assuming all of you are over 35 and asking you that question now. So Wendy, Stephanie, Dawn, whoever wants to take that, please go ahead. And I'll space that out in chat so you have it handy. Yeah.
Well, I can go. I guess that being surrounded by people, I think, one thing that we try to bring in our program is mentorship. I think that when you have you're surrounded by people that supports you, who believes in you, and that you can also go to when you have questions, when there are things that when you want to achieve a certain goal in your professional career, to have people with whom you can exchange and talk about what you're dealing and going through. It's very important, because we see this, that I think having a supporting system, or having people that can also see you in with all your great accomplishment, because sometimes we maybe tend to maybe minimize our accomplishment or what we do, and then to have someone that that you can bounce back this and discuss. I think for me has been very helpful sometimes, because especially when you're running in an organization, and when sometimes you can feel that, okay, so where can I find resources, because you want to move forward, and sometimes you can feel that, where you find the support and the help to go through. And I think that to not be afraid to reach out to other people and also see people that you admire and that you say, well, this is great and amazing what they're doing, and I'd like to learn more about how they went about to achieve this. I think sometimes we might be afraid to just knock at doors and just ask for advice, or just to just reach out to those people and to be confident enough in what we have. And I think sometimes also we tend that we need to be perfect, to have everything figured out, and sometimes it can maybe frozen us to just to move forward. And I think it's just to try and just to go forward and just do things. And I think that's the best way also to experiment and to just move forward. And I think that people appreciate when you're out there and doing things, and even though it's not all perfect, but it's just to do it anyway, even though you're scared, or even though you don't know what things how it will turn out. But I do believe that being surrounded by people who can support you and also be a sounding board sometimes on what you're trying to achieve.
That's a beautiful answer. I love, how you said that. It's like being in a village full of powerful women around you. So that's really inspiring. And thank you, Cora, for the excellent question. Even if audience, you would like to answer that question, put your answer down in chat, because we all learn from each other. Wendy, I do have a question in store for you. I know that SAMA has been partnering with NYAI since 2019. It's the world's largest academic research center in machine learning. It's great to hear that you will be collaborating with them on their AI for Humanity projects. Could you tell us a little more about this project?
Yeah, absolutely. We're very thrilled and fortunate to be partnering with Mila. It's actually one of the reasons we chose to strategically invest and build an office in Montreal, is that there is an incredible ecosystem community. I think in general, the Montreal government's an amazing job. So kudos to all of our folks. I mean, I would say Canada in general has done an amazing job. But it's one of the reasons why we chose to focus there, because there is a focus on AI for good. And Mila is one of the top think tanks in the entire world. So we're fortunate to be partnering. Ultimately, very, very similar to SAMA, we have a lot of alignment that AI for good is really critical. We believe that there is an incredible role that AI and technology has to play in terms of improving and benefiting society. And basically, our focus is really on helping build accurate and bias-free training data solutions, because again, garbage in, garbage out. How do you ensure that the data sets that all of these applications are being built on are representative? Because we can't have AI that only works for a certain population and not everybody else. So I like to use a very simple, silly example, which is, if dogs were in charge of building self-driving cars, there may not be any cats on the street. So, that's kind of how you need to think about it, is that comprehensive and accurate data sets are critical. So we're working with them as a partner. I've done a couple of different initiatives, everything from initially helping with the sort of COVID diagnosis and supporting an AI application that would support a chatbot to guide people to the correct COVID resources. And we have some additional initiatives we're working on right now. So I'm thrilled about the partnership. And I think hopefully over the course of time, I can share an update on some of the work we're doing, current work we're doing with Mila.
Great. And it took me a second to find the unmute button. Thank you so much. That's a very powerful answer again. And on that note, I think I'm going to pick another one of the audience questions. And I'm going to route this to you, Don, because I had a question. So I'm just going to merge these together and ask you. Joanne asks us that, for women who are trying to change their career, get into IT, where can they get a volunteer? What's the advice they can get on their first tech role? Essentially, how do they find mentors to get started? And my question around that really was, about how are you seeing AI as the future? How are you making it more inclusive for women And in your project, in your workspace, could you share some examples of how you are helping women bridge that gap or break the bias? And then again, we spoke a lot about evaluating. So how do you evaluate that? So loads of questions loaded in there in one question.
So I think that the answers sort of play off of a lot of the themes that we are hearing here today, which is not surprising because we're all in this field and we all see the same issues and the same difficulties. Certainly from the perspective of the government and the policies, and this speaks to what Wendy was saying about sort of, we're not, as the government, we can't design self-driving cars just for dogs, right? We have to design AI that works for everyone. And the entire government is quite committed to increasing its use of AI, but understands that to sort of reap some of the benefits, because it's this huge area for potential, but understanding that in order to do that, how do we do that in a safe manner? And so that's sort of the work of my team, is trying to support that of how do we make sure that we're doing this in the right way? How can we take advantage of all of the potential benefits whilst also not sort of getting all the cats run off the road? Because we have to, unlike sort of sometimes individual companies, we actually have to put something out that can serve everybody who lives in this province. So we have to be very mindful. And so from my perspective, sort of AI of the future, I think for it to be inclusive of women, and I say women, but also like this is any sort of marginalized group or with intersectionality, and full disclosure, like I am a woman, but I also have a disability, and this sort of, so how do we make sure that our AI serves everyone? And I think from my perspective, there's sort of three key things to that, and that's it, that we put the right policies in place, which is the work that my team is doing. So for us, that's shaping what AI should be doing for Ontarians. And it means thinking beyond the technology and how it is applied to think about how it might impact the different groups within the province, and how it might impact people differently. And so then that leads us to, we have to build the right teams to get us there. And so I think this again echoes the theme of diversity, that we creating those diverse teams, and Wendy talks, it's better for private companies, they like make more money, it's been shown, but it's essential for government because we have to serve everyone, right? So I think we need the right policies made by the right teams that use the right data. So ensuring that the data that is used in our system is as unbiased as possible, which I think we can all agree is a hard thing to ensure. But it goes beyond that to, if there is like sort of rooting out that bias and acknowledging it or fixing it, and being transparent with the people who are going to be interacting with these machines. With respect to measurement, again, I'm going to echo what other panelists have said. We have to collect the right data. So, if we're looking at, women sort of in higher up, like through things. So it's like, so who is getting the leadership roles in government? Because the leadership roles are the ones that make the decisions, right? So if there's no women at the table, I'm not sure if folks can recall, there was a cartoon or a meme sort of early in the Trump administration of a table of men who were basically making the decisions about women's reproductive health. And every single person at the table was like an old white man. And so how can their voices actually represent the voices of women and women's reproductive health? So who's getting those leadership roles, and how is that reflecting the society or the group of people that those decisions are supposed to serve? And then sort of the next level down, who's in our technical roles, right? Like, again, sort of in government, that's largely men. And so how do we encourage women to sort of take on more of that type of work? How do we build an environment in government where women feel comfortable stepping into those roles? Like, how do we take away that intimidation factor? I'm so pleased to see that both Sama and I'm so sorry, Stephanie, I forgot the name of your organization, but so disclosure, I have 2 daughters, and I'm so excited to see the work that's being done to sort of promote and encourage tech in sort of the next generation. And full disclosure, I actually have a science background and came to government as a second career. So not IT, but sort of molecular biology. So I think it's so important that we reach that younger generation. I'm seeing sort of, it's heartbreaking to me with a technical background that my sort of daughter in grade 6 feels like she can't do math, which, like, who's sending these messages to the young girls, and how do we sort of intervene at that level? I feel like I've gotten a bit off track. Right.
No,
So,
no, what you're saying, because it's so real. We can all relate to it. A lot of here are moms, yeah, so we can absolutely relate to it. And thank you, Don, because also Joanne, for you, I think if you're needing that support to get into IT, to break in, join WAI. You have these amazing organizations we spoke about. Join us here. And on that note, I am going to thank all our amazing speakers, Dawn, Stephanie, Wendy, and hand the mic over to Senabu, who's our host for this evening.
Thank you. Honestly, this was a really great panel. I was really happy about all the things I learned. It was really inspiring, and I just wish that I had access to amazing panels like this when I was much younger. I think I would have made my switch. I started off in math and stats, and now I'm a front-end developer, but that probably would have happened a lot earlier had I had amazing role models like everyone present here. So thank you so much for this. There are some of the points that I really would like to reflect. I think everyone kind of just brought up the topic often. It was that we need diversity at all levels. It's really important, as well as it's good to have a positive impact, but we also need to measure it to make sure that we are actually impacting the people we need and that our impact is indeed as meaningful as we believe it is. And the one shout out, I'm not going to apologize. I love it. That was great. Thank you so much for that. And also Wendy had to go because she had a really important meeting to go to. So yeah, just gonna say thank you to all, and also thank you to Wendy, although she left. But yeah, this has been great. And don't forget to follow Women in AI, Technovation, and to get more updates on upcoming events. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your Friday, everyone. Bye.